Grew up in the UK, where the lights don't always shine. Struggles on the daily, but we keep it in line. On the couch,
I'm Daddy Foley. Welcome to Calp's Chats, where we talk about all things positive, healthy, and we love a good success story. Today is an Abandofbrothers special. Abandofbrothers is a charity that I represent, and we mentor 18 to 25-year-olds who are struggling with life. So they may be involved in crime, they may have problems with addiction, they may have traumatic childhoods. We're here to help. As we go through the journey today, we're going to touch on Abandofbrothers, and at the end, I'm going to give some contact details. So if you know anyone who needs my help, I want to hear. Today's guest is actually an Abandofbrothers graduate. I did not know this. He is an amazing musician, sold over 1 million records, and what I love most about this guy is the creator, co-founder of the I Am Whole campaign, helping over 120 million people, Mr. Jordan Stevens. Jordan.
What an intro.
Have I missed anything?
No, man, I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on, brother. Now, in my eyes,
Pleasure.
You are an absolute legend. And the reason I say that, nothing to do with down with the trumpets or success musically. What I class as a legend in my eyes is someone who goes through adversity, looks at themselves in the mirror, comes out the other side, and then is selfless enough to project that and give that to other people. So, first of all, what's it like to be a legend?
Nah, listen, I appreciate you paying me that compliment. That means a lot. And I would say the same to you, just having researched what you've done and what you do and the conversations we've had in the car on the way here. But I agree, I at least agree with your remit for success. I definitely agree that how we should measure accomplishment isn't, just purely in a material sense or in a notoriety sense. It's in a personal desire and value set. I agree with that, and I'd like to believe that I'm attempting to continue to build and work on myself, and I definitely have a growing passion in the maturation of young men and boys and men generally, just because I know that that's something I can add value to.
Do you know what, bro? I think you've absolutely nailed it there. And for me, it's not about giving back. I don't think I'm giving back. I don't think I owe anyone anything. But for me, I feel that for my journey, anyway, I'll speak for myself, is that I'm obligated to help them. What do you think about that?
I think that that's such a measure of, I think it's a bit selfish, weirdly, in a good way. I think the idea of being of service, giving back to the community, when I really think about it, it's such a shame that that's even seen as, do you know what I mean? I think you get such a gift from, I personally get, it's funny because we're doing the I thing, this is a rule about brothers.
Yes, it is.
We should talk about this because it is an incredible rule as part of the Abandofbrothers experience. It's something that I guess therapists would also encourage, always speaking from I, not placing a you, not deflecting, not stepping outside of personal experience. Really powerful tool that you're going to see us use a lot. But yeah, I think that being of service, essential part of being a human being, essential part of my relationship with being a human being, and something I genuinely enjoy, I get a lot out of.
Brilliant, bro. I mean, I personally believe that to achieve success in whatever way you want to measure it, you've got to go through some kind of journey. And we spoke about in passing the hero's journey.
Yes.
So where did it all start for you? What was early life like for Jordan Stevens?
So my hero's journey, for those who want to look it up, this is I think a Joseph Campbell, well, I don't know if he coined the phrase, but he definitely did a lot of research into it. It's a journey that most of the characters we love and adore for all of history go on, including A Dark Night of the Soul, which is something I definitely experienced in my late 20s. But my journey began in northwest London in Neasden with my mum. My dad was around, but I didn't live with my dad. And I guess, I'm not going to sit here and go through the whole of everything, but we lived in a council estate, me and my mum. My mum has a really interesting past, actually. She was born into money. Her father, my granddad, is an incredible director, but he was one of identical twins, and they married 3 or 4 times each. So the family is spread, and people look like each other, and it's all over the world. But the money left, so I kind of end up in this council estate with my mum, who has these middle class values, which became quite a useful tool for me, because I remember at least a lot of the kids on the estate, there's some rooms that they would be too afraid to go into, and I had this massive privilege of like being thrown into these environments with all this wide variety of people and having to just instantly survive, you know, and talk and ask questions, and always been incredibly curious, actually dangerously curious in my estate. I remember almost getting myself in trouble because as it goes, you know, curiosity in certain environments becomes a danger. And I think I left Neasden when I was about 10, 11. I really do wonder what would have happened if I had carried on asking questions into my teens, because, you know, it changes a little bit for boys. Well, I don't know if it's the same for girls, but, you know, I'm sure this is part of your story too. You know, the rules change a little bit when you start growing up as a boy, especially in like a rough area. Anyway, went to Brighton, where some of my other family was on my mum's side. And then, was able to express myself. I met an amazing guy called Tom Hines, who was running Brighton Youth Centre, running a course at Brighton Youth Centre through a company called Audio Active, which I'm a patron for, an incredible youth organisation. And I fell in love with rapping, man. I fell in love with words. I was always in love with words anyway, because of my Caribbean grandmother, who was an English teacher, came over in Rush. And, you know, like, I just can't explain it. I think I was quite an odd child. I think I was a little bit. I was a weirdo. I was popular a bit because I was good at football, and I don't know. I was one of like a handful of black kids in the school, and sometimes that was a kind of currency in a weird way. And I don't know if that's a good thing, but I had got to a point where I was so used to my own company, especially in my mid-teens, you know, and I just wasn't so bound by friendship or anything like that. I would really lock myself away, and I was very aware of my mum's struggles with money, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get us out of this. I remember that thought, I'm gonna get us out of this mess, I can do this. So I would just focus on, I used to create websites, I used to make Bebo skins. I don't know if anyone remembers Bebo.
I remember. MySpace and Bebo.
Yeah, I used to sell MySpace layouts. I used to do a paper round. I'd use my money off the paper round to get studio time. I entered every single music competition that I could find online. I won £500 to 1, and using that I bought a beat which became Down with the Trumpets, that I then re-vocaled with my friend Harley, and then that part of my life is kind of history. I go on to do Rizzle kicks, had a pretty wild start to my 20s. But in terms of why we're here and why I've just read a book which I'm going to be doing a talk about in Manchester at the Beaver Studios, is because this, in spite of all of that material success, notoriety, I found myself kind of like in some emotional car crash when I went through a particular heartbreak at 27, I think. And to be honest, mate, like, in comparison to other stories I've heard and what can go quote unquote wrong in life or whatever, it's pretty innocuous. Everyone should get their heart broken, and you know, a lot of people have grown up without money, and a lot of people have had, I was bullied a lot as well when I was a kid. But it's for me in that moment, it was the most epic battle, because I had been running away from multiple griefs, especially during the time of my peak fame. I wasn't processing anything, so I was losing. I'd lost people to, you know, all kinds of things. Suicide. I lost both my grandmothers, and I had other difficult issues with my relationships that I just refused to process. So this one particular heartbreak at 27 just completely destroyed me. In fact, to quote my therapist, I collapsed as a human being. That's what that's something she shared with me since I've, you know, built myself back up, because it's relative to my experience, and I had some abandonment issues I hadn't processed, and now it's in my nature. I want to be able to share whatever I've experienced in the hope that it will help someone else. And when I was heartbroken, I was looking for things to hold on to and cling on to. And in doing so, I realised that, you know, a particular kind of man doesn't necessarily discuss this journey or or how important it is to be heartbroken, how love feels, you know, how difficult love can be, how it feels to be loved, bro. That's one of the maddest ones. Are you willing to be loved?
Vulnerability.
Yeah.
Exactly, bro. And you know what? Everything that you're saying then, I'm thinking, oh my God, I can resonate with that. Oh my God, that happened to me. Oh my God. But the working as a mentor, what I do now in basic therapy, what I've realised is that every man or woman who's watching this, they will have experienced parts of your journey.
Yeah.
So what I really want to explore is the nitty gritty.
Go on.
So how you came to this kind of heartbreak, what choices that you made that put you in that situation. Now, what I'm going to go back to is one of the first things that you said then, because I really resonated with this about your mum.
Yeah.
Middle class values. Now, Now, my nan, her dad was a Polish Jew in the war, and he got my great nan pregnant, left. So my nan was raised in what we call a bastard family back in those days. That was the coarse way of saying it. So she was raised by lots of females, became very strong. She then passed that on to my mum, and we're from a disadvantaged background. My gran is a coal miner, Wigan's a working class town.
Yeah.
But we were brought up by strong women who instilled middle class values into us, very similar to yourself. Now, you mentioned before that you were raised predominantly by women. So who were the main figures in your life, and how did they impact on your life?
Well, so the people I grew up around in those early years, my mum has two sisters, so that was the kind of main thing. And I didn't both my grandfathers died before I was born, so I had two grandmothers who I adore still, you know, obviously infinite energy, and then two aunties, and those two aunties had two daughters. So I've got two cousins who I'm really close to, and then one other cousin, Eddie, who's a guy. And he and to be honest, you know, I really looked up to Eddie. You know, at family gatherings, Eddie was always the nearest. And then there was some kind of favoritism by my mum's mum, which again might be a generational thing. She definitely favoured me and Eddie over the girls. It was wild. So there's all those kind of generational politics going on, social politics. But yes, I was mainly just around women circumstantially, and they're all brilliant women. Everyone's got their problems and whatever, and then my mum's immediate friendship circle, all incredibly creative and brilliant, not just women. I've spoken recently about my godfather, David McCalmon, an incredible singer, It's, very proud gay black man who just, I can't explain it. I just loved his house, and he had this incredible collection of dolls, and it was just like he was very meticulous, and just, I don't know, I was again a privilege for me to understand. I've grown up now with a complete I feel like, I don't know what way to word it. I'm like almost allergic to homophobia. Obviously I don't like it, but it's I can't almost believe it exists, and perhaps that's just because I was able to be around, you know, that type of existence and openness as a child. But yeah, and then on my dad's side, I'd seen my Stevens family a little bit, but I'd spent a lot of time at my grand's house, and another incredible woman, English teacher. So yeah, I had a lot of female energy around me, and I think that helped me tap into my feminine side. But I was still conditioned as a straight boy. I was still conditioned by society in that way, and ended up making many of the same mistakes that the boys and men around me would make, regardless of whether or not I was open-minded or had open views on things. I was still problematic. And actually I found this is you know why I like these conversations. I found that in the last 6 years, it's actually my masculine side that I've really tapped into in order to balance things out, and I feel like it's made me a better person.
Yeah, brilliant. And for me, in my humble opinion, you are a very masculine man. Now, my idea of masculine probably isn't what other people's idea of masculine is. I don't think masculine sort of going around fighting and drinking beer and things like that. I feel that masculinity is a set of positive values, essentially.
Yeah.
What was your relationship like with your dad growing up?
So my dad, he was around. He was in different relationships. And my main memories of me and my dad were playing football with him in the back garden of my estate, and I think, yeah, I mean, I write about this in my book a little bit, and I'm conscious of telling too many other people's stories, but my dad had a tough time. My dad grew up as the only black kid in a mainly white area in Finchley in London. He was dubbed by like a music magazine back in the day as the first black punk. He was part of like a bunch of bands. His story is pretty nuts, to be honest. He's kind of a world-traveling, kind of drug-taking, wild child. And, that bled a little bit into the early parts of my childhood, and so it made our relationship quite complex. And I wish he was around more, and I wish he wasn't as secretive as well, not secretive, but like contained, perhaps, as he's ended up being. But in recent years, I took it upon myself to speak to him and build back that relationship. And like I say, he's always been around, but he's just been this like elusive. I'd have to drag things out of him, rather than what I would have wanted, which was being passed down these messages, these teachings, these offerings. So he was always kind of like mystical to me as a child, rather than hands-on.
Definitely. I mean, essentially, it was a single parent family that you came
I was definitely mainly raised by my mum. Yeah,
and it wasn't conventional, and your relationship with your dad wasn't conventional. I understand that myself, because again, very similar upbringing myself.
Yeah.
Did you feel safe as a child growing up?
How would I say?
So I suppose to me, if I was to relate it to my experiences growing up, I kind of never really felt, looking back, I didn't think these exact words, but I didn't really feel wanted. I kind of felt, I suppose, because I did feel wanted, I didn't feel loved, and it was nothing to do. My mum was amazing. She raised me really, really well, but because of circumstances, and because I suppose the old comparisons, the thief of joy kind of thing, is that I kind of looked at other people and thought, why have I not got what they want? And especially growing up mixed race in a white area, I felt that too. So what about you? Did that affect you in any way?
That's so wild. So odd. I think, well, again, the first 10 years of my life, it was a multicultural area because I was in Easton. So, my first friends were from fucking all over the shop. But Brighton, I definitely felt like a bit of an outcast. I think safety. I think I did, interestingly, I did a test once with this guy who worked a lot with addicts, because I definitely have had drug problems in my 20s. Time and money is a wild double active when you got a mind like mine. But I did this apparently this IQ or like a mental exam, and it came back with what they called an addict line, which was something to do, I wish I had the specifics, but it's something to do with the feeling of belonging and something else. But all I can remember is the feeling of thinking, maybe as a child, in spite of my dad doing the best that he could and my mum doing the best that she could, I think maybe I didn't feel like I should be there. Which is wild.
Resonate with you, bro.
And I can't add enough of a disclaimer that I'm so conscious of everyone's doing the best they can do. Do you know what I mean? My mum and my dad are doing the best they can do. But we live in a fucking high-pressured world, and there's all these statistics around like boys in low-income single-parent households. And, I do think that as children, we have this desperation to be in some kind of unit or some kind of stability. And if it's not there, it has effects for decades.
Massively, bro, massively. I mean, you've been raised in a single parent family in your relationship with your dad. How do you think that's affected your way you've been moving forwards, and how's that affected your relationships moving forwards?
Well, this is the thing. And neither of us know, do we? We don't know how life would feel if there had been that. I don't know, what would it be? Backbone or
I kind of feel, I'll be honest with you, I've been going through therapy myself. I've done this course called Landmark. I don't know if you've heard it.
Yeah, I don't know about it.
Bro, it saved my life.
Really?
Literally, removes all your limiting self-belief. So I won't go into too much that, but what they do essentially is they make everything your fault. So Danny, your dad wasn't there. okay, why wasn't your dad there? Because I was shit and he was shit, just obviously dumbing it down a bit here.
Yeah.
So they say to you, okay, Danny, well, the facts are a man just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Your story is that you're shit and he's shit. So you've been telling stories and lies about your dad all the time. So that in front of 200 people, ring your dad up and apologise now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this is why, I've almost have that kind of awareness in the back of my mind.
Yeah, exactly. So what I realised is that I was searching for something that I didn't have. And when I looked at my relationships, especially with the opposite sex, I was acting up in a certain way, perhaps because of abandonment issues.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's where I'm coming from. That has that shown up for you all from what you can see?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like I say, this heartbreak was definitely instigated by me. I was the heartbreak I write about in my book. I struggled with commitment, fidelity. I mean, we're talking about me in my early 20s and mid 20s. Some people might think that's to be expected, but I came to a point after the last time that happened, which was the last time that happened, where I was like, I think I value being able to build an intimate relationship above anything else, rather than just being in the cloud of fleeting highs and constant stimulation, and also constant desire for validation.
That's validation. The
validation thing, massive.
Yeah.
Like regardless of how I present and my ability to, I guess the term would be mask, to be able to be in new situations and meet new people, and people think I exude this confidence. I think for a large part of my life, I actually had a cripplingly low self-esteem.
Yeah. And
that would manifest itself because it was unseen by me, or at least unconscious. It would end up with me, being emotionally unavailable in relationships, neglectful, and ultimately unfaithful.
I think that's it, bro. Now, what they call these unseen parts, it's your blind spots, isn't it? It's your blind spots. So how would you identify these blind spots? What advice would you give people who do the same?
Well, this is one thing that sticks with me, right? Is that when we think about intelligence, and I mean we when I say this, we
can say it now. We can
say we. When society or when I think about intelligence, we generally believe that. I think there's an idea that it's an academic thing. Like bright, intelligent people went to uni and but there's this incredible philosopher called Abandofbrothers, and he says that he calls intelligence pattern recognition, which I think is amazing because it then covers all of these avenues where people would be, if I'm honest, like demeaned actually and condescended by society. For example, if you're talking about pattern recognition, then suddenly labourers are given their flowers. There's understanding materials and amounts of material. Like, I'm not a labourer, so I actually don't know. I actually am stupid in this regard. Yeah. But that they recognise those patterns. They recognise, if you're talking about architects, that's a pattern recognition. We talk about mathematicians, pattern recognition, scientists, pattern recognition, footballers, pattern recognition. Two people running you at the same time, and that you have to put it in that space. It's a high level of intelligence right there. And then to the same extent, emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize patterns of behavior. And I got to a point where I'd made the same mistake so many times. If I was going to make it again, it would be like a conscious stupidity. I recognized it, and in the moment I recognized it, I said I have to make a change. They say, I don't know who actually originally said the phrase, but doing the same thing and expecting different results. Einstein, which is madness. I said Einstein, but apparently it's not true.
No way. I've been lied to all these years. Google has been lied to.
Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, doing the same thing and expecting different results is a true sign of madness. And so I'd been in relationships, said I'd love you to more than 3 women, I think maybe, and every time it had blown up, every time I felt like I could have done something differently. And so I was like, I have to change something. And my first thing was going sober, which is 6 years I've been sober from alcohol and cocaine.
Yeah.
And then
well done.
Thank you. And then and then to be honest, once I started doing that, these other things, I did therapy and I worked at it, man.
I think that the big thing what I recognise with you, John, and what a quality that I love in anyone is accountability, and being able to hold yourself accountable.
Now,
yeah. Well, you've got to go through it. I'm a big believer in the universe, and I believe that the universe gives you a certain amount of chances, and it'll keep throwing you the same lesson until you learn from it.
Yeah.
And it appears that you've done
Yes.
It appears that you've done that, so good on you for doing that, bro. Now, you said as well that you're a bit of an odd child.
yes.
Tell us, what kind of odd shit did you do?
So, like, my odd child, I mean that because I've been an only child most of my life. I didn't necessarily pick up on so many of the social norms that other kids in my school were picking up on. I was very black and white. So when people were like, "Oh, what are you doing after school?" And I would say, "What are you doing after school?" And they'd say, "Oh, we're gonna go and hang out in the park." That would be mad to me, because I'd be like, "Oh, I'd rather watch a film. Or I'd rather learn how to write HTML code," because I wanted to be moving forwards the whole time. I love that. But I mean, now in my mid-20s, I started to understand that I actually really got a lot out of just sitting with people I love. But it took me a while to get there.
Yeah.
And so that's what I meant by odd. And then ultimately I didn't agree with school. I didn't like the conditions. I didn't like the forced sense of authority. I didn't like how some of the teachers abused their power. And everything I achieved was extracurricular. Everything I achieved in school was extracurricular, to be honest. Like, coursework I did really well in because I did it when I wasn't at school. Tests I did all right in. I think they're ridiculous as a concept. And yeah, I got my head down straight away, and I think that's why I achieved success young. Which, plot twist, I wouldn't actually necessarily think is such a good thing, but it happened.
Well, we'll go there shortly. So, would you say you're anti-establishment? A bit of a vague question, that isn't it?
My mum is.
Yeah.
My mum is, bro. I've said this on a podcast before. I'm sure that I was like born into protest. Like, my mum has been opposing many governmental shifts, since I was like, we were anti the Iraq war, and we were, like, I didn't even know some of the protests I was on as a kid. My mum had a t-shirt saying "McShit" on it as a kid with the McDonald's flag. Yeah. So
give me one.
Yeah. So like, So I definitely, the main quality my mum enforced in me was just never. She said, if someone tells you what to do, that doesn't mean you have to do it. There's always another way to do something. Like, there's not one set path. That my mum really installed that in me as a child. And then, ironically, when I hit puberty and she wanted more help around the house, I was like, but why? Maybe there's another way around.
She's created a monster.
Yeah, a little bit.
Do you know what? We could do a whole other podcast about that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to go there. We'll talk about helping people. But if we talk about race now, tell people what your heritage is.
So I'm half Guyanese and half British. Guyana. Yeah, my dad was born in London, but and both my parents were born in London, but my grandparents Guyanese and British. You're Jamaican.
Yeah, Jamaican English. Yeah, so we're both of a similar ilk, really, Caribbean English as well. What colour do you class yourself as, or race?
I say mixed race. Yeah,
me too.
Yeah,
I'm proud. I see mixed. I don't see myself as half black, half white. I see myself as a separate entity. Completely. Yes.
You know what? It is different.
Have you read that poem by John Agard?
Yeah,
what an amazing poem.
Yeah,
and that's kind of like, when I was growing up, I didn't understand things as my dad's the black side of the family, and he wasn't there. So the sort of shit I was doing was, I was getting trains to Manchester Centre where all the black people were trying to sort of find them to.
Really?
Yeah, I was doing crazy shit.
Because
like
you were saying before that it was like a mainly white area.
It was, yeah. See, it was. How did you find growing up mixed race, especially when you moved from London to Brighton? How was that for you?
Brighton was like I say, Neasden was a rough area. Brent at the time was rough. I mean, it probably still is rough, to be honest, but Brighton relatively was amazing. Like, I remember with Rizzle kicks that, like, when we released our first album, me and Harley were just literally rapping about just like drinking beer by the sea. Just like, and I remember, I mean, listen, again, this is topic for another podcast, but it was so interesting seeing the public's expectation of two mixed race boys rapping. It was so interesting seeing what they thought we should be like, from black and white people.
Yeah.
We were actually quite uniquely stuck in the middle, because we were just like happy. And I remember I remember I used to get it from some of the other rappers in Brighton. They'd be, oh, you know, you don't rap about hard shit, you don't da-da-da. And I remember thinking, like, bro, relative to Neasden, Brighton was like paradise to me. Yeah, I was there going, what is there to be annoyed about? Like the sea's right there. Do you know what I mean? Like we got a night. Me and my mum were in a nice little muse. It wasn't a council flat. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, listen, don't get me wrong. There's some rough areas in Brighton. There was like the Knoll Estate, and then there's Whitehawk, and it was. It's not like as everywhere in this country, but. Yeah, just for me, I was just being honest. Like I thought I was having no time of my life by the beach. But then as I got older, I did realise, looking back, that just on the basis it was a mainly wet area, I did have this internalised kind of self-hatred. Sounds hardcore, but there wasn't, like you say, there was a handful of black boys at the school. Me and Harley's one of a handful of black boys at his school, and it's just. You just get. I played football. A lot of people were racist when I played these matches. I wouldn't necessarily know. I wouldn't be like massively upset about it. It was just that made me feel as though I was not like everyone else or whatever. And some of my mates would say racist shit to me just because they were just trying it out. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, we were all little shits though back then, Of course. But yeah, it definitely. There was that. Yeah. So in one way, Brighton was this kind of more safe, sea-based, like fucking whatever, a lot of drugs, a lot of sex. Like my school was fucking rowdy, mate. Like, yeah, Brighton was loose, bro. Like, just in all senses, man. It was just like very.
Sound like you got some stories.
Yeah. Again, in my book. Yeah, but it was, we were active, young in many ways. I know it's probably uncomfortable for people to hear, but that's just the truth. And so there was that side. But then, self-identification. When I come back to London, been around more black people. Again, realising that I had maybe missed out on feeling a sense of. I don't know, a sense of being, I don't know, just not being other, not being different. Yeah. It's a weird one. I don't know how to explain. I mean, but you'll know though, right? Like
I get it completely. I had racism from both sides. So when I was very young, growing up in the 80s in a place like Wigan, I had a lot of racism. Now, when I got a bit older, I was quite an hard guy. That sounded like a dick, and I was like the hardest guy in the school. So I didn't really get a lot of bullying then. Because
did you decide to be the hardest guy because
I didn't get it when I got to that sort of level? But when I was younger, I got bullied because of the colour of my skin. Now I remember I was at a party down in London, and there was some other mixed race guys there. We were talking about races. We were both all coked up and drunk, to be honest with you. I remember having a real bit of beef with this mixed race guy. I said, "What race are you?" I said, "Mixed." He said, "You're black." And we had some real beef, so I've had it from both sides. He was giving me shit.
I didn't like that you weren't saying black.
He didn't like that, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, did you ever experience that kind of race?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that argument happening.
Yeah.
Because I guess, like, we don't get the freedom to be... I guess he would, perhaps, what he was suggesting was that, like, people will see him as black regardless. People see you as black regardless. Me as black regardless. I've learned that sometimes, that even if I want to say I'm mixed race, like there's some instances where that doesn't mean anything really in the scheme of things. It's just not white. But there are other times where it can be almost an advantage because we're not black. Fucking wild.
It's you go to the Caribbean and to black countries, they would have clashed with black.
Bro, but they call me white, bro.
Red man.
Bro, I swear Jamaican, these men were just joking around calling me white. But do you think though that, like, did you feel the need to harden up because you were othered so much as a child? Or was that other circumstances?
A bit of both. So subconsciously looking back now, due to things that were going on in the household, there was things I witnessed between my mum and her partner that I shouldn't have witnessed, and things going on, and including the racism as well, that I had to toughen myself up and basically shut my feelings off at some point. So that was a contributing factor, of having to be this big man. And for a long time in my life, I had this bravado where I had to be this tough guy who beats people up. I was a doorman for many years in Manchester. That was another part of it. They were involved in crime and selling things that I shouldn't be selling. So it was all part of this mask, and it was only really over the last 4 or 5 years that I've uncovered that. And it's really helped to open up my feelings. And then all of a sudden, when I had gone through this therapy and these holistics, that I started thinking, wow, all these feelings, shit, I feel sad. I've never felt sadness before. So it was fucking crazy, bro, in terms of that. So yeah, that was my little journey with it. Anyway,
Have you spoken about all this journey on the Couch Talks already?
yes, so I've spoken a lot about this as well. I've done a radio show in Manchester.
Yeah.
So, are you interviewing me now? I'm interviewing you.
I kind of feel like I want to a little bit though.
don't,
Because, I mean, before we go on to just can you answer me? So, but what was there a pivotal moment or no?
Yes.
Was there like,
Yes, there was, yeah. So in 2019, and a good friend of mine, long story short, he got stabbed to death, he got murdered.
Yeah.
And then I had to go to a funeral, look at his dad in the eyes and like be like, sorry, I feel like I should have done more.
Yeah.
And then that was like the call to action that I needed. The
grief.
Then lockdown happened, the grief and the shame and the guilt. And then lockdown happened, and then 4 years later, here we are, healthy masculinity, mentoring and giving.
well, true, man. It's true.
What about you? Was there a turning point for you where you realised?
It was. I think. Okay, this is what just came to me. Then, so I'm going to run with it.
Go for it.
So again, it was all circumstantial. My. So I had the heartbreak, the pain, insane. Like again. You know, maybe if I write it down on paper, it doesn't seem, you know, like, oh, he's heartbroken, cool. But bro, I was fucked, right? So I'm thinking, like, I'm fighting for my life in my head, you know, and I'm writing and I'm doing all these things, and I wrote this article for The Guardian back then. Actually, Landmark used my article in one of their courses. Yeah, because I remember I remember a chef coming up to me and being like, I just read your article at Landmark. Yeah. But what I wrote it about was, because I was in so much pain, my only question was, why don't I have the tools to deal with this pain? And at the time, the Me Too movement had just started, and I've seen a lot of men talking about their experiences, and the greatest men holding themselves accountable. So I'm like, look, let's push more of this, you know, whatever, and I want to hold myself accountable, etc. So like, I put this article out, and then this woman reaches out to me called Donna Lancaster, who I want to shout out forever. I just read something she wrote this morning, I almost cried, bro. This woman is an angel. I don't know,
The 6'10" poles.
Yeah.
I watched For You with Third Quarter last night, and I was like,
Oh, did you watch that? Right, so she's interviewed Donna. She loves Donna as well, fan. Yeah, man, crazy. Oh, we can talk about the 4 Agreements as well. So I see you talk about that. But yeah, Donna is an angel. Donna, Gabby, and Freddie was on this course. Anyway, she said to me, look, I run this course called The Bridge. I really want you to come on it. No, men don't really come on it. That's the paraphrase version. Write about it, please. Help people. You know. So that was the deal, and I did it. I'm still friends with Donna now. I love her. I feel blessed to know her. And The Bridge, unfortunately, isn't running at the moment, which is something again we're all trying to do. Abandofbrothers is the next nearest thing I've had to The Bridge.
Yeah.
But everyone should be experiencing this kind of meeting with the self. So anyway, I've gone along to The Bridge, and you know, I turned up, and my grief, at least what I thought it was I'm heartbroken. You know, I lost someone I loved. That was it. I was where my grands had died, and this, you know, the suicides and unfortunate deaths, all this kind of stuff. But I'm there, and these people are talking, and some of the stories, I'm going like, yo, I don't think mine is important enough.
Yeah.
I don't think it's important enough. I remember saying to the facilitator, I was like, I don't know if I should be here, man. Like, it's a heartbreak. Do you know what I mean? And she was like, that's not how this works. Like, the emotional world doesn't abide to the same laws as our material world. It's not the same thing as like, that's a big car, that's a small car. That's not the same, you know. So she was like, just carry on. And by the end of that course, I realized that emotion is a physical reality that we, if not processed, store in our bodies. That was a massive thing for me, to realize that. Before that point, I'd intellectualized this a lot. I remember being at my grand's funeral and being like, oh, an old person has died. Next. I'd literally be like, you know, and my therapist would even say, me laughing then is me attempting to deflect from the reality that even me thinking about my grand's funeral still makes me sad. But I didn't want to process it, you know. So these things happen again. Fucked up relationships, betrayal in friendships, bro. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Especially for men. I shouldn't say especially for men, but from a lot of the stories I see in men,
yeah,
friendship betrayal is a fucking huge one. Huge. So these are all stored. And man, I did this course. and I ended up having a trauma response, which was a good thing in this context.
Yeah.
And it was like my knee was just shaking and my whole body, this whole, it was wild. And I felt like half a stone lighter after this experience, man. And listen, in a band of are we allowed to talk about it?
We can talk about it, yeah, because we want to sort of showcase.
Good. All right.
Talk about.
Well, the nearest part of the initiation in Band of Brothers to Bridge would be the grief circle.
Yeah.
And I remember, again, when I did the Band of Brothers course, I remember thinking, I've already done the bridge, so a lot of this inner child work,
Yeah.
you know, it's not going to be as intense. It was still intense, but as intense. I was more watching the other guys and being part of the family. The grief circle, bro. Since she there, just like it makes me emotional even think about it now.
You're not taught to deal with those,
Bro.
Why are you not taught?
And I was there like, whoa. And it's that connection to a shared understanding, a shared emotion. And suddenly I wasn't comparing grief. I wasn't measuring my own individual. It doesn't matter. Like, we all have to process emotions, good, bad, you know, and I didn't realize that if we weren't, it's stored and it comes out in other ways.
It manifests itself in negative ways.
How many guys you hear about with dodgy backs, dodgy knees, constant shoulder pain?
All the ones are the ones for your parents, aren't they?
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I'm not surprised.
Trust me. And it can manifest itself in things like addiction as well.
Addiction, oh my God. I mean,
people think it's just drinking drugs. It's not.
Emotional addiction's a massive one. People telling the same stories. How many guys know telling the same stories 25 years of pain because they're actually addicted to the feeling they get telling it instead of moving through it? Mad. I mean, you know, I know people are addicted to the news.
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it? Addiction's an absolute.
But yeah, look, for me, my addiction was rooted in internalized anger, taking anger out on myself rather than other people. Again, learning about anger for me was a massive one. Healthy anger, not rage.
Yeah.
Not knocking random people out.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
These emotions that we're given, they're given us as a blessing, not to be abused. And until we actually learn how to deal with these emotions, then they're going to be a curse to us. Do you remember Mark Nightingale? Did you ever come across Mark?
No.
He was a Abandofbrothers Brighton.
Okay.
Yeah, and he said that grief isn't an emotion; it's actually a skill.
Yeah.
And now I've gone through it myself. I actually feel it, and I was the same as you. I was storing so much grief and suicides, murders, family members, and just the same as you. Lost my nan's funeral. Okay, bye now. Not a tear shed. And it took me till a couple of years ago to really deal with all this. And a lot of it was through Abandofbrothers. And wow, the tears fucking came out, bro. I needed a dinghy. I was like, unbelievable.
But isn't it beautiful as well that, like, I'm using all my energy to not interview you right now because I just find you so... Okay, good. Because I find your story incredible from what we shared before we started this. But I just think about the fact that you've gone through, again, in the material real world, some of the adversity you've gone through and the situation you put yourself in, easily identifiable as dangerous and life-changing and terrifying, you know. And still, this is another beautiful thing of Band of Brothers. We're connected by grief.
Yes.
You can do that. I could be a fucking hell, mate. I could be, you know, just lying on a bed for 10 years and then I'll lose some, you know what I mean? Us losing our grandparents will have the same level of intent. Do you know what I mean?
Trust me.
Well, relative, I guess, to how connected we were to you.
I think that's it. It's where the brotherhood comes along as well. And, you know, I feel personally that my brotherhood's changed over the last 10 years or so. My brotherhood used to be kicking people's all through, robbing crops, hurting people. Yeah. And then when I joined the Band of Brothers, and I joined as a mentor, not a younger man, my brotherhood then changed. So my brotherhood then became... My brotherhood is actually someone who you can share your stories with, share your lyrics with. And then I looked back and I thought, how the fuck did I feel that brotherhood was all those unhealthy things? And now I found this brotherhood. Did you ever find that yourself?
Yeah, brotherhood is something that I've really started to learn in only the last few years.
Really?
Yeah, just because, firstly, because I was raised by women predominantly, like, I find it a lot easier to get on with women, which is another odd space, which is why I'm saying that it's not an odd space. I mean, I love women. But I mean, that's why tapping into my masculinity, one of the one of the main goals I set myself was to really tap into the men around me, and you know, in the same way, like, why do I find it easy to talk to women? Actually, I hear a lot from the women I know, that the stuff that they're spoken to by their boyfriends, they'll wonder why they're not able to say that to their boyfriends, aren't able to say to their friends, you know. And I've always had my like 2 guy friends, or I've always had I have like a close little circle, but I've been trying to expand that. But I've always thought interesting from just observing. Because one thing I always did do, even as a odd little weirdo loner, is I'd always watch people. I'm fascinated by humans. I'd sit in cafes and just watch people. I would stand in a playground and just listen, watch, because I just wanted to know about people's patterns. I'm so curiosity and I'm looking at patterns. And one thing I really noticed was even these macho guys that I could see, they have this bravado, and it comes with, you know, I guess some kind of misogyny sometimes, or this, I absolutely despise this societal desire to constantly prove that you're straight. I think that's so mad, bro. Like the whole no homo pause, like all that kind of can't get too close, off why is this gay, like, bro.
I think it's a sign of weakness, per se.
What's man? Of course it is.
Insecurity.
Yeah. And even in that space where it's like, you know, have to show that I'm, you know, impenetrable, even their closest brothers were the one people who were around when they're at their lowest. So even at that point, is this something? In fact, let me ask you: do you think that's true, that even men who claim they don't understand vulnerability secretly do, because they're boys?
That is my circle. Sorry, boys, I'm going to blow you all right. But that is my circle, and that has been my circle growing up. Like I said, we were the tough guys. We were the guys who used to fight all the time. We were the guys involved in crime. So that was the mask that we had. And then all of a sudden, at some point, we all discovered the sesh. Cocaine sessions. And that was our release then, but it wasn't real. And that was our time when we could share our stories. Then after the coke session, then it was back to being a tough guy again, and back to not sharing. And then you don't need to share. You don't need to go on that self-development course. You don't need to be part of that group. You're an hard guy. You should be able to internalise it and do it all yourself.
Right.
So
that's one of the values.
Yes, I completely resonate with that. But my opinion and my idea of masculinity, it's completely changed. It used to be that old archetype of being the tough guy, the strong but silent type, and that was completely changed. What's your idea of masculinity? How would you
well, you know what? Yeah, like, I think the thing is, those values, right, like the tough guys, strong and silent, like, I don't even think we need to step too far away from
the stoicism, isn't there? And that's almost to a similar extent.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that there's like a deeper understanding of stoicism. I know that there's a more like shallow understanding that people will adopt in order to just not process things. From what I know, I think there's like a real, I don't know enough about stoicism, but I know there's a version of it that isn't as detached as it make out. But I definitely do think that there is something to do with being rooted in masculinity or that energy. I don't think masculine and femininity are exclusive to men and women. I think they're energies that should be in every person.
Agree.
And you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with toughness. I just see it as emotional resilience. You know, and I see it as like processing an emotion is it's not like a negotiable part of being a human being. It's not up for debate. Like crying, processing, moving cortisol around your body, like that is just part of, we're animals. Do you know what I mean? And denying ourselves that freedom to just let go of something, it's really corrosive. You can do that and be in great shape. You can be big. Like the fact that men can gain this massive strength is a beautiful thing. I worry that men don't value that enough. Yeah, man, you're fucking strong. What are you going to do with that strength, though? Like, are you aware that that's a power? And with that, to quote Spider-Man, don't use that. Like the two values I worry we've lost. Let's just say, for the sake of the conversation, from men. But I think generally in society is honour.
Love that.
And duty, which, you know...
Can I throw another word in there?
Please, go on.
Integrity.
Well, yeah, duty, integrity, for sure. Because, again, those words can get totally taken the wrong way. But duty is more to what you said, being of service. But the honour thing, right? Like, again... disclaimer, all my opinions are fluid. This is how I'm feeling right now at this moment in time. But whenever I have a lot of these conversations with people around, let's say, like war, violence, men, women, the world, you know, sometimes I hear views that state, oh, we don't need any violence, or we don't need. And
was it you quoted that some things need violence? Is it Mandela or was it Martin Luther King?
Hey, listen, Mandela was on smoke, bro. I don't know. Or Winnie Mandela. You should look into his. Anyway, we're talking about resistance there, right? So I don't know. I look again. I'm not one to speak. I'm not the gospel on this.
Yes.
My point is, I don't think we have to detach from our bodies and our desire to protect our communities and like not use. It's just honor. Is like, if you're powerful, right? If we're on a night out and there's a lad who's 6'4" and he's stacked, and there's a guy who's off his nut and he's half his size and he's trying to swing for him, are you going to beat that person up?
Yes,
no,
exactly, bro.
It's like in what world? Like, it's your responsibility as the bigger person, and it's just it's the same when we talk about conversations around consent with women. I think it's our responsibility as men a lot of the time to make sure a woman is safe first and foremost. It is actually.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think if we were to look at the energies of masculine and feminine, I completely agree with you that we are, as males and females, we're both made up of it. Of course,
yeah.
Both of them, you've got to nurture both and look after both. But I think there are perhaps certain roles, such as protection and leadership and honour, that men perhaps have more than the women. And I agree with what you're saying there.
Maybe. I mean, leadership's up for debate because we make some pretty wild decisions.
Yeah.
Not to say that women don't, but I think I think leadership, I'm almost more interested in seeing. I've seen enough of what decisions men do. I'd be interested to see. Anyway, I don't know about that. That's another conversation. But yeah, I think in terms of like our physical bodies, we should be proud of them, and we should lead forward with honor. We should understand that if someone has more power, it's essentially their responsibility to deter or neutralize the situation before entering into anything else. When I see fights, 4-5 people jumping in and stuff, it just makes me
hate that. I mean, when I grew up, it was like you had what's called a straightener. You had a one-on-one, and that was it. Now, when I'm talking about it's absolute garbage. Why would you have a one-on-one anyway? You know what I mean? But what I'm talking about is I couldn't live with myself if me and 5 other guys had beat up one guy. I'd have to fall on my sword. Like I could not live with myself. That's
again,
honourable.
Like you're saying, look, I'm not. It's just such a conversation because I'm not. No, because I'm not promoting violence at all. No. It should always be the last. Like, it should never. We shouldn't have to resort to anything like that. But I mean, the concept of like dueling or battling in any sense, it can be physical, mental, whatever. Like, we need to. When I look at the animal kingdom, you know, that's a part of being an animal. But then there's surrender. Yeah. And then there's acceptance of defeat. The honor. Do you know how honourable it is for someone to lose? In fact, I've seen something about this on your page. But the beauty of being able to accept a loss and just keeping it moving. Oh my God, there's arguably nothing. But you can't beat a good loser.
The thing is, though, you never actually lose, do you? You never actually really lose, because when it's like the old saying, never a failure, always a lesson. So you never literally fucking lose.
Yeah,
that's the great.
And I think if we maintain that sense of honour, then a lot of things in life would be easier.
So I want to know about Cisco and the karate kick.
Oh my God. You watched my TED talk because I was maybe. Yeah, man. Yeah, that was my first experience of being on a stage talent show when I was, I don't know, 7, something like that. But yeah, my first dose of performing in front of an audience, for better or for worse.
Okay, I like that. Do you know what? Ironically enough, Cisco, Thumb Song is my karaoke song.
I mean, isn't it everyone?
You know what I mean? Can't go wrong with that.
Wild.
How old were you when you got famous for Rizzle kicks?
19, when I became famous for Rizzle kicks. Had to give it a go for about a year up until that point. The thing about Rizzle kicks, which is a shock to everyone, including ourselves, is it happened very fast. We were performing, me and Harley were performing in Brighton to like 30 people, and then one song connects. July 2011, we went into the charts at 144 and finished that at number 8, and that was wild and a shock. And I guess that the instant nature of it led to a lot of the issues I would end up having, as well as the success.
I mean, I guess that from someone who's external looking in, all the general layperson would see is the glamorous side of being famous, and I suppose a glamorous side, you might think, fame, attention, money, attention off the opposite sex, drugs,
all of that.
Those things maybe aren't as glamorous as they seem. What was your experience of fame?
So, one of the first things I was actually told was to never complain about fame. That was an early thing. Just because the idea was like, no one will relate to that. Like, no one cares. Because for whatever reason, we live in a society that gravitates towards that idea of, and now we see it more than ever, people are getting famous just for existing. It's not like providing anything. They're not like giving something to the society. It's just like, hey, I'm a person, I'm kind of funny, give me some money. So it's like, that's what it, but back then, this is before, Instagram, before TikTok. And look, there are perks that come from it, but they're material perks. Anyone who's grown up poor will know that money is nice. Like, I'm not going to sit here and go, money is an awful thing. Like, there is a certain alleviation of stress which is essential. Well, not essential, but it can create a better environment for you. The pressure put on the pressure put on members of society who are struggling financially, which I was before, and I still see it with my mum and my dad. It's insane. Like, you're not only stepped on, you're squashed, you're kicked, you're charged for having no money in the bank. Like, what world do we live in? It's crazy. So of course, being able to like clear some debts and buy something I like listen, I'm never going to complain about that. The attack on my like spiritual well-being, maybe, if we're going to go there, and I know we're going to talk about 4 agreements, and actually towards the end of 4 agreements, the guy even says that he wouldn't be famous if he had the choice. Is like my anonymity dead, right? Which is, again, some perks. Maybe I get into a fucking club, who knows? But no more anonymity, right? Within reason. Again, growing up as a young man, if someone looks at me for too long, it is intimidating. Like, that, for me, everything up to that point is like something's about to happen. Especially from other men. So, like, that is a continuously like anxiety-inducing thing. And it was at one point I actually couldn't go into public when we were at our peak.
You guys were big, were you? You were massive.
In 2012, we were pretty fucking big. We were getting our t-shirts printed. Our faces were on t-shirts in like fucking River Island and Primark and shit. In fact, one of them got sued because they did it illegally. But like, it was a lot. So that suddenly my world's just gone. Suddenly I can't really go anywhere unless I know exactly where I'm going and I'm around people, and so that was a shock. Again, I'm not complaining, it was just a shock. And then you have the whole thing where I'm no longer, people are now telling me what I am, they're telling me who I am. The more successful you get, the more hate you get, obviously, naturally. And now I'm older, I have more understanding of the world, more experience, I can deal with that, I know myself more, I've got a little bit more self-confidence, and I've got good people around me. Back then, I was in a chaos whirlwind hurricane, and that stuff was like, I felt like I was constantly needing to prove myself. Another reason why I would not suggest people getting thrown into fame at a young age.
So expectation.
I had to step out of it in order to grow up. I really believe that we put Rizzle Kicks on ice because I looked at the situation, Holly looked at the situation, and when all of this material stuff isn't worth our emotional well-being.
It makes sense. I mean, you spoke openly about your story on your journey with your mental health and also addiction as well. What kind of impact did fame have on that?
That's what I'm saying. So this is the mad thing. So the root of I remember the first time I started doing coke was because I'd get invited to all of these nights. And a lot of the time I would see people on these nights out that I had 2 months before, 3 months before, I had seen as a famous person. Do you know what I mean? So like, especially footballers, entertainers that have been in the industry for a while, and then suddenly I'm being introduced to them, and occasionally they'd know who I was. And I remember I used to talk to these people, and I became hyper focused and fixated on how I'd say bye. And that sounds crazy. So I would be so panicked that I didn't like give the right fist bump or handshake, or did I not hug them, or why did I hug them, or why did I say see you around, and then I'd get home and listen. There are other reasons for this now. I've realised this isn't necessarily around chat for it, but there's all things about neurodiversity and other ways for a brain to process social interaction. But it would fucking rattle me, bro.
Yeah.
Like, meeting these people constantly, even though I'm a confident person and a curious person, I was rattled, right? Really? And then I'd done I tried coke when I was 18 or 17, but I remember doing it one time when it's like out, and then I didn't care so much about what I was saying to these people or how I came across, which is ironic because honestly you come across pretty badly. But and then I was like, fuck, well, maybe if I just do coke every time I'm out, then I don't have to worry about...
It's a short-term solution, isn't it?
Short-term solution. So, and then that was amplified. So then I remember another time when my addiction, when my drug abuse flared up, was finishing our second album. There was 4 or 5 months in between the second album we finished and coming out. I couldn't deal with the fact I couldn't change it. Wasn't able to sit alone with that thought. So I'd go out, I'd get completely shit-faced. And then I later realised that these flare-ups were also tied to me being unable to tell someone I love or in a relationship with to fuck off.
Mad, isn't it?
Bro, literally, like, and from varying degrees. Sometimes it'll just be like, I don't want to be in this relationship. Or sometimes it'll be like, why haven't you been there? Like, that's another thing, is like, I went through one experience when I lost someone, and, you know, someone close to me wasn't there. And instead of just being like, sitting that person down and being like, why the fuck weren't you there? I'm angry with you. I was like, no, I guess I'll just destroy myself, and then I won't have to deal with that confrontation, you know.
It's like we said earlier, isn't it, though? It's like, it's almost like with the grief thing, he stores, doesn't it? And then it manifests itself.
It stores, bro. So yeah, and a lot of the time it was unvisited confrontations and anger, suppressed anger I'd had towards people I love, because I never wanted to be angry with people I love, bro. I never wanted to. I didn't understand that you could be angry with someone you loved.
And still love them.
I still love them and actually respect them on that basis.
So let me get this right. So what you were doing was essentially numbing the other feelings. Essentially, and I had that myself. I was an addict, and I say it was because I feel like I've dealt with it now. But I stopped selling drugs 4 years ago, and then I realised I had a £1,000 a week cocaine habit. And when I look back now, I just used to I'd go and sit on my own for 3 days, just sniff. And sniff.
3 days in the morning and that.
Yeah, just fully on my own, drinking. And when I went through the therapy and the different courses, I realised that came from childhood trauma. What was it for you? When did you realise you're an addict, and how did you deal with it?
Well, my dad is an addict. So I don't know what the science is on inherited trauma like that, or maybe even picking up on the behaviour as a kid. I don't know, but. Everyone's got addictive behaviours too. I honestly, one thing that I do have in my being, which I owe to whoever my upbringing, is that I have this bizarre ability to just switch something off. So actually, I never went through AA. I never went through NA. I actually wish I did, to be honest, just for the camaraderie and the community. But like, there's a couple of things as part of the AA and NA program that I didn't necessarily. It would just mean I would never be sober for more than a day. Like during my sobriety, I was still smoking weed at the start, and also I'm a massive fan of psychedelics and mushrooms and microdosing, and that hasn't yet been really recognised, I don't think, in some of these meetings as sobriety.
Not at all.
Yeah, so my sobriety was coke and alcohol. I know that meant massive amounts to my health, so I kind of just had to go with it. But for all the struggles I've had, like, my immediate thing is a practicality thing, you know, like, this isn't working, I need to change it. And yeah, I think it was a lack of belonging. I think that was what I've come to realise, what we said earlier in the conversation. It's easier to escape into that mono thought, you know what I mean? And I had so many voices in my head at that point, and coke used to just go whew, and I'd have it'd be like writing, drinking, sex, drugs. I mean, yeah, really.
Really?
And then the worse the coke problem became, the more productive I became.
Is that so?
So I was at home, like you.
Yeah.
I'd do coke on my own, drink on my own,
Yeah.
but I would write loads and loads. Very functional.
Do you know what? I've actually I've got a few close friends who've got ADHD, and it's helped me have a real understanding of it as well.
Yeah.
And these guys have also gone through addiction, and they've said that cocaine works differently for someone with ADHD.
Focus.
It silences those voices. Do you find the same yourself as well?
Yeah, that's what took me off coke was ADHD medication.
What did you take for your
And then I had to take myself off the ADHD medication.
Adderall.
Because it's amphetamine. I mean, it's literally meth, you know?
Yeah. Oh, was that right? Really?
Methamphetamine, yeah. Like ADHD medication is supposedly methamphetamine without the addictive molecule. That's what they say.
Is that Adderall? Is it? Yeah.
Adderall is a methamphetamine, yeah. Right, okay. Adderall, Ritalin, Concerta. I mean, maybe they're slightly different molecular structures. I don't know, but they're uppers. You crush it, you can sell it at speed.
I mean, I've tried Adderall and I loved it. I got a lot of shit done. Modafinil was one as well. But I tried it.
Modafinil.
Yeah, I got a lot of shit on.
I write about modafinil in the book.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you cleaning those down?
Yes. I'm clear. I don't do medication. I mean, I sometimes try it. Like my last prescription was like 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I've still got pills in the box. But I only even got that prescription because I could.
Yeah.
And I was just worried in case I needed it. But actually, again, this is probably too long to go into, but I was fortunate enough to do quite an intense psychedelic trip with something called, I can't even get it right, Bufo, yeah, like where they blow, what is it, the frogs, there's something to do with the frog, is it? It's the venom of a cane toad, yeah. But it's not Cambo.
I've done Cambo a couple of times.
Yeah, it's not Cambo. You smoke this one.
Yes, I know someone who's done that, yeah.
And yeah, bro, it took me off the meds.
Really?
It's mad, bro.
I mean, plant medicine is another podcast, which
it's another podcast. That's what I say, bro. But the thing is, like, okay. So let me try and say it in a way that would be beneficial to the audience.
Yeah.
Like, how I even got myself into that situation was because I was curious at a party. So that's good. I was sober at this party, and I started speaking to a stranger because I was interested.
Yeah.
And this guy happened to be a psychedelics enthusiast. So then
the guy at a party, isn't it?
So then he invited me to this. I researched what it was, and at the time there was a peer-reviewed science paper, a very limited research, only 84 people studied, so it's a small study, about 5-MeO-DMT, and the results were really positive. So I went, you know what, I'm going to take this risk, and I'm going to go for it, and I did it. And the guy said to me, I took the pinch of salt, I'll never go into those things being like, oh, I'm gonna get my life changed. I'd be like, you know, I really believe in plants, I believe in ancient rituals.
Yeah.
So I went there, and then the guy said to me, what are you taking for ADHD? I said, Concerta. And he went, well, let's see what the toad has to say about that. I was like, all right, mate.
How mysterious.
I was like, listen, let me have my little trip. And then so I did the trip. 2-3 days later, I texted the woman facilitator and went, can I take my ADHD meds? She was like, yeah, of course, just do what you want. Took this medication, and then, bro, I just felt it in my body. I felt myself being pulled away from my body, and I was like, yo, wow. And I just came off it. Literally, I didn't take it again for like at least a year.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's insane. I know, but look, we can't do that. Again, I'm not, as a disclaimer, I'm not qualified to. That's only my experience.
No recommendation to be made. But
yeah,
that's a great experience.
But medication can help people with ADHD 100%. Like I say, it took me off cocaine, which is definitely cheaper.
It's an expensive habit,
and it's more socially viable. Yeah, I mean, I was able to maintain relationships whilst being medicated, but ultimately, I don't want to be reliant on anything. And there are other actions I've taken in life, like the 6-10 pole, which have had remarkable effects on my attention. Sleep, massive. Nutrition, huge.
That is so. Exercise,
Daylight, massive. Community and solitude, like, you know, making sure that's balanced, man. Like, I've realised recently, actually, I've not been alone enough.
Really?
Yeah.
Solitude is so important, I think, as well.
Oh, mate.
So important. I was speaking to my mum about it yesterday. I went at a family meal out, and she was saying she feels so uncomfortable when she's alone. Maybe this is something you need to have a look into.
Yeah.
I think solitude is so important.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time on your own now.
I'm planning to. I have historically as a only child, but my dad's recently had 2 kids. It's a whole other story, but but yeah. But what I was going to say was, yeah. So addiction, doing drugs was definitely an unfortunate side effect of fame, and trying to deal with that, trying to understand who I was in that space, but most importantly dealing with that as a young man.
Yes.
Who I don't feel I hadn't matured yet, in the sense of I hadn't confronted loss. I hadn't put myself in a position where I could be guided by any elders in my community, or any just given some ideas of where I can go with things, why I'm feeling certain things, which is another reason why things like Abandofbrothers is so important.
I mean, let's talk about ADHD, because it seems that more and more kids these days are getting diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
And I personally have a lot of friends who have ADHD. I think it's important that if you've not got ADHD, you recognise what it is and you can understand people.
Yeah, yeah.
If you were to give a description to somebody who's not got it, how would you describe ADHD?
Wow. Well, I think the official definition is something to do with the executive functioning part of the brain. So the reason why amphetamines work differently, again, disclaimer, I'm not a scientist, but this is from what I have I do read a lot, I watch a lot, because I'm interested.
You're not a dealer either.
But we have an underfiring of neurons to the executive functioning part of the brain, so apparently amphetamines speed them up, and it connects, and then we chill out.
Okay.
Whereas for people who already have those neurons firing, it can overstimulate, and then we're just on and up.
Okay.
But the experience is I have to really take a moment to measure myself in situations that some people, I don't even know if being neurotypical is the most common thing anymore. I don't know if that is a thing, but I know, for example, my girlfriend doesn't have the same stresses as me,
right.
And it's just understanding that some situations that are deemed as normal and usual will be more difficult to understand, and there are other ways to deal with situations, which I'm still learning about.
Yeah.
So for most of my life, right, but on the basis I'm a young man, my untidiness has been put on that.
Right.
The fact that I've not, because it's true, I'm not.
Yeah.
I haven't. There'll be girls and women can get ADHD, and it can get diagnosed for years, because they're forced, socialized to do things like organized stuff.
Right.
It can almost, it's because there's nature and nurture constantly, and for me, people would think I'm lazy, or I'm rude, or and I've always tried to say I can't explain, considering I would consider myself to be quite apt. I'll listen and learn, I'm curious. If I look at a mess, it fucking hurts my brain.
Really?
I can't explain the fog I get, trying to understand where I start, why it goes somewhere else. My thought is constantly I would much rather just write, or read,
okay,
or I'd much rather play football. I'm not that's not. Whereas someone else will be when that is tidy, I'm gonna feel better.
The thought process, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just different. It's and or decompression, for example, transitions. These are two things. If you've just got in from work, you need 15 minutes just to chill.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this isn't exclusive to people with ADHD. But this is something I found. And then you can approach the day. You might be overstimulated by your environment. I don't know. I just know that I have to look at things slightly differently.
So what
I'm more sensitive to things that then
What advice would you give to someone who's not got ADHD to help if they've got a friend
with ADHD?
Yeah.
Oh, mate. I think ultimately, I think it's my responsibility as somebody who knows that I look at life slightly differently to figure out and try to the best of my ability to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
Because I think what we're in danger of a little bit now is people thinking that ADHD is an excuse.
Yeah.
And that everyone has to work around people with ADHD. It's not the case. There are things I can do that and I need to do to make sure, like habit stacking, for example. I can attach something that I don't enjoy to something I do enjoy to get it done.
Yeah.
That's the action I can take. To the same extent, just people who might, if you feel like a friend of yours is having an irrational response to something, maybe just think that like they're literally experiencing it differently to you, and it's not something to be demeaned. Or like, you know, I hate it when people say like it's not that deep. Like it's almost certainly deep to that person, otherwise I wouldn't be reacting. Like why would I, if I'm getting into a tiff about the fact that a plan has changed, or the fact that like I have just spent ages getting somewhere, and then the minute I get somewhere someone tells you to do something else, like that, I might melt down. And to them it's like, why are you, that's weird. You know, just understand that to that person that might be a massive deal, and all you have to do is lead with love in that moment, and then it will dissipate.
I love that, bro. And what I thought the bottom line for me in helping somebody who's got ADHD is that it's not rocket science. It's just tolerance and patience, isn't it?
Patience, bro. That's another one of those values. Patience. That's something I've got to learn in myself, man. I'm so impatient.
I think perhaps that's why I've got so many friends who all talk about ADHD. Recognition to all your ADHD friends I've got. Patient. Man, it's not rocket science.
It's a great quality to have.
Bro, mega that. What I do love about you, bro, is the fact that you look at yourself in the mirror and you take action on things that you want to move forward with. And we talk about my friend Donna and the Temple, talk about Abandofbrothers, but also tell us a bit more about the I Am Whole campaign.
Oh yeah, I'm Whole. So yeah, I'm Whole was a mental health campaign birthed out of me writing a song, which is another temple, by the way, creativity. Everybody should be creative. Everybody should write, I believe. Everyone should express themselves in that way. Another thing I find with men, there's like a real barrier on writing, real barrier on reading. I did a workshop in a prison once, and I was suggesting to this guy that he just wrote down free write, no goal, no whatever, and he just blanket refused.
Really?
Yeah, and I thought it was sad because, you know, I don't know what he was. Well, and I have guesses of what he was afraid of, but it's such a powerful personal activity. And I said to him, burn it after. I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to judge it. I don't care about your handwriting. I don't care about your words, your punctuation, none of that shit. Just the process of you writing, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, I've gone on a tangent. That's my ADHD. We should do a disclaimer on the ADHD. What was the question?
I Am Whole.
Yes, I Am Whole. I was depressed. I wrote a song, and I met the right people at the right time, and it became a mental health campaign, and we did really well. Super proud of it. Still ongoing, especially the social media side of it. We have distant plans, but me and the co-founder are both pretty busy doing, I guess, jobs that are extensions of it in a way. One of the big issues of I'm Whole was a lack of male engagement, especially from boys, which is, you know, would never stop us. Absolutely, I'm so grateful for the people who were brave enough to be involved and tell their stories, and a lot of the men who did align themselves with, especially men of influence who you know, put the circle on their hand and help promote it. Really means a lot. But yeah, just further cemented the desire in my heart and soul to figure out what we can do to create more emotional resilience, community, balance and love within boys and men. And that is also extends to, I think that's the best thing I can do for women, genuinely.
I really agree with that as well. And I think a couple of key words you said then that really struck a chord with me is love and community. And community is something that's massive for me. That the reason I do a lot of the work I do is because I think that we're lacking in community these days, especially for men. And obviously you're part of Abandofbrothers, which is what I'm part of as well. And one thing I do love about Abandofbrothers is that it brings together communities. It brings together different ages. I'll just tell the viewers a little bit about Abandofbrothers. So it's a community-based mentor charity where we help 18 to 25 year olds who are struggling with life. So it might be they've got involved with crime, it might be addiction, they might have childhood trauma. I would put them through a mentoring program where they'll have their own mentor. We're all volunteers, so that's why it's community based. And then we have a residential weekend away in the wilderness called the Rites of Passage weekends. And then once they've completed that, then we help them integrate back into society. It's a bit like the hero's journey, the return to the village. And then you can become the man, essentially, you want to be. So what were your experiences like with Abandofbrothers? How did you find it?
So Abandofbrothers was a big experience for me. For clarity, I was too old to do the course as a, what would the term be, man? Yeah, well, is there a word for the men who do the course?
So we have an older man or a younger man.
Yeah, but I was kind of given a trainee mentor position.
Yeah.
With the desire to literally have conversations like this, write things when possible, and spread awareness. And yeah, I had already done the bridge, so I had an experience of inner child work. So like I said earlier, it's not all of it was as intense, but it was so important to me to be around men going through that experience, understanding the intensity of the experience, the battle, the internal battle. Also, you know, one of the biggest issues I find with young men is the idea that we have to perform masculinity. So watching people confronted by the idea of that performance, I thought the stories we told were interesting, the framing of it, and you know, it was interesting for me knowing how it feels to go through that experience with mostly women, and then go through that experience with only men. That was really interesting to see.
What are the key differences, would you say?
Well, you know, the thing is that the core energies are different in that, like, there is this like raw that comes with the expulsion of frustration with men. You know, we were encouraged to scream as well when I was doing the process of women, and they did, and they punched pillows, they did all the kind of thing. But it's, yeah, there's like an extra this gravitas, and sometimes I worried when we were going through the some of the process that there was like too much of a focus on blame. But that's not from the course, by the way.
Yeah,
that's individuals. Sometimes I'd hear people saying quite rude things about people in their lives because but that's part of it. And I guess for me it was like new, because I had been around men like that in that way. And
really, okay.
And for that reason, again, when we came to the grief circle, bro, like that is, again, it's so weird not to have this conversation. Like, I don't want to gender things because I don't know how helpful that is, but there's something like the camaraderie I felt at the bridge, unmatched, like Abandofbrothers, unmatched in terms of the grief as if for families, next level.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? But I feel like there's something ancient about men being in a circle. I can't explain it.
Yeah.
And
good or bad?
Good.
Yeah.
Good, because it's like the second that circle arrived, and suddenly it's like
brotherhood, isn't it? Brotherhood.
Yeah, but I was tapped in.
Yeah.
And then I've heard about this from people who have like been initiated into ancient tribes and stuff, about like these grief circles, these men in villages going into these circles and just crying with each other, and then just coming back out and facing all those warriors.
What they used to do, isn't it? In ancient years gone by.
I felt like I tapped into some infinite, you know. So I guess there was something there, some ancient difference in the experience between the two, and
definitely.
And I could see this. You know what it was? I can see the socialized differences between men and women in terms of like their immediate responses to the trauma they had faced, and where they placed that fury. But like, listen, my main thing is like, I wish every boy and man could experience this.
You know what? I completely agree.
And I wish it was longer. Sorry, that was the other thing. That's a really important point.
Yeah.
The bridge was 6 days. I've seen people go from, you know, pointing fingers, to complete understanding in those 6 days, you know, because you're doing movement work, you're doing yoga, you're doing all kind of stuff. In Abandofbrothers, that was my wish. It's only a weekend, right?
Can you imagine if they incorporated the Abandofbrothers with plant medicine?
Bro, insane. But even doubling the time.
Yeah.
Just so everyone can really get a proper sense of each other.
Yeah. Bro, completely agree with you, mate.
Yeah. But I just felt like so passionately that I wanted these men to have more resources and like and have more time.
bro. I completely agree. So, Jordan, you're an Abandonbrothers graduate now.
Yeah.
Would you recommend this to young men, and how would you advise them to get in touch or get involved?
Yeah, I would certainly suggest Abandonbrothers to young men. I want there to be more men's circles generally. Like, I know that they're just popping up around the country, and I think, I mean, you could help with the involvement thing. Is it just Abandonbrothers website and you find your local?
Most definitely, yeah, most definitely. I mean, you can contact me directly on my Instagram. It's Mr. Danny Foley, or Abob Manchester on Instagram as well. I'm happy to take any referrals direct, even if it's not directly from, if you're not a young person, if you are a mom, a brother, a sister, a friend, anyone who you think might need my help, I want to help, and I'm happy to help directly. So get in touch. Nothing is too much trouble, I promise you.
And also, just never, ever, ever doubt the power of, you know, putting together a circle, holding a space for people to just chat. It's essential.
Most definitely. And just give it a go. Give it a go if you got to lose.
Yeah, how did you find Abandonbrothers?
Do you know what? How did I find it? I found it amazing. Now, I'd already done bits of menswear before, and I'd done the Landmark as well. And we had
before Abandonbrothers had done Landmark.
So I'd done lots of community work, mentoring as well. So I came in as being brought in as a mentor, and I kind of thought I'd done it all, because I'd done very similar things to what Abandonbrothers is. But for me, it was a little bit different. It was the shadow work. So with Landmark, I'd removed the limited self-beliefs through conversations and through just accepting responsibility. But with the shadow work, I actually really got present with it. So when I was talking about the things, when I wrote the things on my t-shirt, I think it was, I'm a drug dealer, I break people's hearts, people don't like me. When I actually got present with those, and what we do when you had the people around you saying the things, saying your limiting self-beliefs, it was actually like I was there. It was actually like I was in my own head. And I'd done very well at sort of over my life, kind of like holding things back and holding my emotions. And I thought, I've done all this, I don't need to do it again. But once I let go and I let myself become vulnerable, and to use that word you used earlier, I surrendered to it.
Bro,
that's when I got the benefit.
You know
of
what it is as well? It's like, I think it's hard for me to comment on the difference between a bridge and Abandonbrothers. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, because of what we've spoken about earlier, because of my familiarity being vulnerable with women, and then actually, like, how challenging is that for me in that space? I remember when we got this, is there something to do with throwing a rock, screaming? I was terrified of that bit. Like I told you, because my whole thing is suppressed anger, and I'm like,
I was the same.
And I'm there like, what are the consequences of me being visibly angry in front of these men? I was worried that, like, I wouldn't be angry enough, or I wasn't seeing it. Like,
I was thinking, well, I'm 5'11" and 70, so maybe they won't think I'm angry enough. All those things were coming into.
But we need more of it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's like there weren't enough days, but to make up for all the missed years of eldership and male guidance.
I think that's such an important thing that you just said.
But what a start!
Eldership, bro.
Yeah,
eldership, and that's what's missing. I mean, in ancient times, communities where, like we were saying earlier, children essentially have children. If you're in 20s and you're having children, you're still a child yourself.
Yeah.
And what would happen in ancient tribes is the people who'd had the children would go on to work or do whatever they had to do, and then the elders would raise the children, essentially. And that's what I think is missing from society today.
Oh, mate. Do you know what's mad? Well done. Donna Lancaster, for context, I've got my phone out. I'm reading her Substack, and this is another beautiful piece. Defrosting frozen love, as she's put here. Whilst learning about the history and rituals of my lineage on my father's South African side, I discovered a ritual that moved me deeply. In certain villages, when a member of the community has lost their way and behaved out of alignment with their hearts and the collective values and ethics, out of alignment with their hearts is crazy, they are summoned to meet with the elders. Everyone in the village is invited to attend, and the person who is in trouble is told, not invited, told to sit in the centre as all the community members surround him, and it's usually a man. Each person takes it in turns to tell this man what they love about him. Not what he's done wrong, he knows that, but how much love there is for him in his community. Literally everyone, led by the elders, speaks at length to him and their shared memories, about their shared memories, what they know of his heart and character, and they love they hold for him. They literally love bomb him. A very different kind of bomb that can defrost the coldest device.
I was not expecting that.
The man is not allowed to speak nor leave until he re-enters his heart and begins to weep. This may take some time until finally he breaks open and lets the love flow in and out.
What? Do you know, when you first started explaining that, I was expecting he was going to get a bollocking of some nature.
Yeah.
And I was like shocked.
This is what I mean about
That
finding.
makes so much sense, though.
But it's similar to the what did you call it, carpet work at Abandofbrothers is massively towards the end of the bridge. And I think what's clear is that it's just we're missing that ritual.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's such an emphasis on young men is because unfortunately unfortunately for men, if we sit on these things, the way it comes out is incredibly damaging.
Yeah.
To us and other people in our society, and that's why it's such an important. Why it's so important that we do this work with the youngest.
Massively, and especially with the experience that you've got as well, and
you've got, man. Like,
yes,
honestly, for you to
we're
be
both
in this
legends.
place-
Both legends.
No, but it's like, you know, you have weathered a storm of experience that many people glamorize still, and many boys will desire based off of their own relationship with vulnerability or fear of being conceived as weak. The fact that you've gone through that and you're seeing this as your path now, bro, it's honestly like, that's why I responded so quickly, because I'm like, this is exactly what we're meant to be doing. And I actually really thank you for even like seeing my story as worth sharing, for real.
Unbelievable, bro. Thank you for coming on, bro. Tell us about the book.
Yeah, just quickly. So I got this book out, Avoidance, Drugs, Heartbreak and Dogs. Again, like, it's hard because ultimately it's just about heartbreak. There's no epic story. There's no like there's no firearms.
Any amphetamines?
There's amphetamines. There's definitely amphetamines. But like, I like to believe that whatever I've put in that book is a microcosm, or it's that shared grief you talked about. It's that emotional world, knowing that like, even if you haven't had my experience or think it's that extreme or whatever, there's something in there that we can attach to. That is the beauty of reading. A lot of young men don't read it at the moment. There's a lowering proportion of boys and men that read, and reading it can be really hard. It can involve a lot of patience and focus, but it's so rewarding, and it would mean the fucking world to me for people to read this book, because that's why I wrote it.
Bro, honestly, I could resonate with what you said about reading.
You don't have to like it.
I'll read it anyway.
Also, there'll be like audio books and shit. There's other ways to deal with
I
it.
agree with you about reading though, because again, when I was going through addiction, I just couldn't sit and read things.
Oh, mate, no way.
And as
I still struggle with reading, but I try.
I force myself to read now, and don't get me wrong, I've not got the concentration span for whatever read to sit there and read a book for like in a day quickly. But again, I'm getting better at it. It's calming me down a lot. I think it's helped me with my decision making. It's helped me with peace of mind.
And also, I think the main thing, because it seems as though men are more drawn to non-fiction, right? Like,
yes.
Men and boys, they love what is it? Fucking hell. Autobiography.
Yeah.
And fact, which is great. Again, really important, you know, self-development, understanding a story. You can look at the person, you go, right, I get that part. But what is so amazing about fiction, obviously this is a memoir, so this is based off of reality. But what's so important about fiction reading is there's always truth in that. It's not a lie. It's not a lie. It's exercising empathy and imagination at the same time, and giving us a break from the severity of life. You know, you can really enter into another world, and that's so important to understanding the world around you.
Well, you write children's books as well, don't you?
I've written one. I've got another one coming.
How did you find that?
Yeah, it's good. No, it's the kids' book journey's been great. I got very lucky. Again, I fluked it. I wrote a story that wasn't even meant to be a kids' book, and then it became one. And but you know what? I'll be real. Like, the best thing about it, I know we're running out of time here. Sorry, boys. The best thing about writing a kids' book, and I mean this, is meeting these kids. I can't explain to you. The best way to put it is, like, I was on telly last year.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, I was on telly. A late night show. It was live.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of eyes on it. and I knew I'd be finishing about 1 a.m. I looked in my diary and it said I had a kids book reading at like 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. in Hastings, which is like an hour and a half drive at least, right, the next morning. And I'm telling you, I value sleep over anything. I'm telling you, I was buzzing.
Yeah.
Bro,
Yeah.
I was buzzing. Like, there's not even that many kids that come to these things, you know, because it's just up in the air if someone sees it in a local paper or whatever. The joy these kids give me after this show, man. I'm done with this late night thing, talking rubbish about people. I'm there like, I've jumped in this car, and these kids are just so pure, man. These kids,
The pure
and what I love as well is I get to talk to these kids, and some of them, they're so shy, they don't want to chat. And I see them at the start, and I'm like, right, I've got an hour. I want an hour to make that kid smile. Do you know what I mean? And it's so rewarding when they turn around. And one time I was in an event for these kids, and this kid must have been 6 years old, right? And he's come up to me afterwards and been like, "Great book, mate." He's literally, I was like, who's this 50-year-old child that's just got, he's like, "Great story, son. Love it, well done." And I was like, I probably feel more accomplished than that. But yeah, and you know, that's a beautiful way of ending this, because that is one really important part of the development of men in our society, is that paternal energy. I feel like it's my responsibility to be a man in that space, a father-like figure in that space, and enjoy the presence of these children, because I want to be a great dad. I want to be a present father. I want to be, I want to be part of the reason why the next generation feels more in touch with themselves.
Bro, and I was actually thinking, how am I going to close this? And you just took what I was going to say. It was not only, Jordan, you're a top bloke, but you're also an amazing role model.
Oh, you too, bro. Come on. Big love. We'll do this again.
Yes, we will.
Come on. Couch chat.
Couch chats.
Talk from the couch, revealing what's in our minds. Life ain't always easy, but we hold what's kind. From the highs to the lows, we learn from our scars. Late nights, bright lights.